at this point. So if you would rather not be caught on camera, not a problem, no hard feelings. You're welcome to turn off your camera as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daisy, for that reminder. And again, I think we have most of our panelists here. Do we see Daisha come in already?
I haven't seen her
Just
yet. We're
okay.
welcome to get started and we
Okay.
can onboard her as we need to.
Fabulous. Thanks, Daisy. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started then. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Hour of Code Employer Panel Kickoff event. We are very excited you all are here. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Alyssa Laskowski, and I work here on the SNHU online career team. And I will be hosting our panel event today along with my colleague Daisy Gillum. So again, as Daisy said, as a reminder, this presentation is being recorded. So if you do not want to be recorded, you're welcome to simply just turn off your camera. And again, we do ask that everyone stay muted until the end of the presentation. Daisy, I'll turn it over to you for access and accommodations.
Perfect, thank you. So I do want to let everyone know about our access and accommodations policy. So your experience at SNHU is very important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the appropriate accessibility center. If you're an online student, you're going to email oac@snhu.edu or call 866-305-9430. If you're a campus student, you're going to email cac@snhu.edu or call 603-644-3118. And finally, if you're SNHU staff or faculty, you will email hr@snhu.edu.
Awesome. Thank you, Daisy. So again, welcome to everyone who's here, and of course, welcome to our employer panelists today. We'll get started by going over quickly just kind of what Hour of Code is as a recap, and then we'll jump into our panel questions. And for student attendees who are in the audience this afternoon, we'd love to hear directly from you. So if you could please take a moment to type into the chat box your answer to the following prompt here on the screen, which says, how comfortable are you with coding on a scale of 1 to 3? 1 being not comfortable, 2 somewhat comfortable, or 3 very comfortable. And again, feel free to introduce yourselves as well, your name, major, and where you're logging in from today. So again, just as a quick recap reminder, Hour of Code is a week-long global event, which started as a 1-hour introduction to students to computer science, really designed to demystify code and show that everybody can learn the basics, and really the goal at the end of the day was to broaden participation in the field of computer science. So this week, students will be led by our STEM faculty through the available coding games and activities for 1 hour each day of this week. And of course, today we are kicking off this week-long celebration with our employer panelists. And just again, as a reminder, during the week-long event sessions, students will be able really to work together, ask questions, and have fun and learn to improve your coding skills. And as a reminder, no coding skills are required whatsoever to participate. We just encourage students to come and have fun and really nerd out during these really fun gaming activities. And so, without further ado, let's go ahead and meet our panelists. So panelists, Daisy and I will be asking you all a series of questions, and we'll kind of pick on a panelist randomly to get us started. And again, for those who are in the audience today, you are welcome and highly encouraged to add any questions directly into the chat box. And we will do our best to relay them out loud for our panelists. So, Daisy, I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Then if we can actually just go in. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Let me change my mind. Kirsten, could you please kick us off and get started on introductions?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsten Mackey. I am here representing Vanguard today. So just a little bit about me. I am actually a student at Southern New Hampshire. I'm enrolled in the computer science program here. So hoping that I can kind of make some connections between the program offered at Southern New Hampshire as well as working in the tech industry.
Perfect, thank you. And I'm just going to go in order with my screen. Can I kick it over to Andy M, please?
Hi, my name is Andy Mize. I am a data management analyst with Pearson. I recently graduated from North Carolina State University, where I studied mathematics and computer science. So really excited to be here. It's kind of crazy to be on the other side now of these student events, as I was a recent student myself, but very excited.
Awesome. Thank you. We're happy to have you here. And can I do Andy E, please?
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody. Actually, it's still morning for me. I'm Andy Eilers. I am living just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. I work as a software developer at Asurion, which is a tech company and handles cell phone insurance for Verizon and AT&T. So if you have insurance through those carriers, you actually work with Asurion. I graduated with an MBA from SNHU in 2015. I have since went on to get a Master of Science in Software Design and Programming from the University of Denver, which I finished earlier this year. So I'm deep in the code. I would also say the answer to the poll question is my level of comfort with coding is also a 1. Um, but um, but yeah, so I'm deep in it. I love it. And I appreciate you having me here to talk to y'all today.
We're happy to have you, and congratulations on your recent graduation and your degree there. That's really exciting.
Thank you.
Judy, could I, and actually, Judy, you are a returning panelist. If I could please ask you to introduce yourself as well.
Daisy, she just had to answer run to the door really quickly, so she's coming
Oh,
right back. She just
okay.
popped in the chat.
Yeah, not a problem. Sorry, I can't see the chat right now. Then what I'll do instead, we do have a fifth panelist, Daisha, who I've seen pop in before. Daisha, are you here right now? I think you might be having some tech issues.
No, I'm here. It's Deshay. I'm here,
Oh,
Deja.
Deshay. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I'm
Hey,
here. How
perfect.
are
Would you
y'all?
please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Deshay Rogers Givens. I am the technology director of our retail media business here at Home Depot. I was a software engineer for some 15 years. Before I transitioned into leadership roles, I helped build our internal search engine here, built our ad tech and martech teams, and I also do a ton of work with Techstars and a VC called Collab Capital. Um, I think I answered the question in chat. I definitely say it's a 1.
Oh, oh, hang on. I'm sorry. You just got muted on accident.
I'm back.
I apologize. I think I actually did that. So you were saying that your comfort code, your with code is a 1. So I appreciate the answer there.
Well, yeah, with writing software, I have no problem critiquing it at all. But writing software, I'd say is a 1.
Perfect. No, thanks for sharing that. That's fantastic. And Judy, to wrap us up, I accidentally called me when you stepped away, I think, but you are actually a returning panelist. If you don't mind introducing yourself.
All good. Yeah, timing is everything. We have a guest coming over today, and my husband's not quite home from being out yet, so I had to answer the door real quick. So yeah, my name is Judy Jarvis. I am a React developer, a senior React developer at Nexient, which is an NTT data company. I've been with Nexient for about 5 years. I've been doing React for about 1 year now, so I consider myself still fairly new to it. I used to do C++ programming, so it's been a very big change for me, but it's new and exciting, and I enjoy the amazing group of people that I get to learn with at Nexient and work with.
Perfect. Well, thank you to all of you for introducing yourselves. And Alyssa, I will, I believe, kick it back over to you.
Awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and then get started with some of the, we had some of our students actually submit survey questions prior when they registered for the event. So I'll jump in with the student survey questions first. And then what we'll do is Daisy and I will kind of ping pong back and forth so y'all don't have to hear my voice the entire time. With the first question, we have here, and again, I will pick on someone randomly, is if you could tell us about your career journey. Specifically, how did you get started with a career in technology? So why don't we go with Andy E to kick us off?
Okay, appreciate it. We only have 50 minutes left in this meeting, so I might have to cut my journey short. But so I have followed a very what many would say non-traditional path. I actually joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. So I was in the Marines for 5 years, and I worked on electrical systems of helicopters, CH-53 helicopters to be specific. And so I gained a lot of technical knowledge there, and really a passion for solving problems and fixing things and things like that. So wound up getting my bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism after I got out of the Marine Corps. So I was a 24-year-old college freshman, which was really interesting. And then, long story short, attempted to open a couple of businesses, wound up working for State Farm Insurance for 6.5 years, and then worked my way up at State Farm as a life insurance underwriter. So I was reviewing life insurance applications, which there was a lot of computer systems involved in doing that. And I enjoyed it for the most part, but it still didn't quite fit my passion of fixing things and making things. And so I took my newly obtained MBA from SNHU and moved out to Nashville from Northern Colorado, and tried to leverage that new education and abilities to work on something new. So wound up working at Vanderbilt for a year in a communications department, and then landed at Asurion, which is where I got to start. It was kind of an insurance-based role for a little bit, but then I actually got selected for a software engineering apprenticeship program that the company was running, which was, I was a little hesitant because I thought in my mind it would be kind of a lateral move. And, I was pushing 40 years old at that point. So I'm like, is it time in my life for a lateral move? But I am so glad that I applied and grateful that I got selected, and wound up going to Nashville Software School for 6 months, and then had another 6 months of on-the-job training after that, which brought me to this point. Like I said, I love it. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to get where I'm at here. It was a really roundabout way, but it worked. So I hope that's a testament to, you don't have to get into something like that right out of the gate. And anecdotally, at Nashville Software School, one of the people that I worked with on a regular basis, who was also a student, was a former Air Force chaplain who was in his late 60s. So he retired from the Air Force and said, "Let's get into coding." So the moral of the story is, it's really never too late.
Awesome, Andy. Thank you for sharing them. We see some activity in the chat. A lot of people thank you so much for your service. And looks like we do have some Navy vets in the audience as well. So thank you so much for sharing your background, your story. And I'll kick it over to Kirsten for same question. Tell us a little bit about your career journey and how you got started in tech.
Yeah, sure. So I'm kind of also a non-traditional career path here. I actually, went to school for my bachelor's and my master's degree in math education. So the past 8.5 years, I was a middle and high school math teacher, and kind of what got me into programming, was always something in the back of my mind that I was like, what would I do if I wanted to leave education or kind of change my mind? So it was always in the back of my mind, but I never really had kind of a reason or an incentive to go back to school, pick up another, programming language. So one of my teachers at my school left. She actually left to become a software developer at Vanguard. But I took over teaching AP Computer Science A for her. So that was kind of my motive to learn Java, get into this kind of tech field, and learn some programming skills. And from taking over that course, I decided I needed to learn a little bit more about it. So I enrolled for the bachelor's program for computer science here at Southern New Hampshire. I have a few courses left to take, so I'm still in the middle of it. But I'd say, I sent in my application to Vanguard at the end of last year. I got some encouragement from my former teacher who left and went to Vanguard, and she kind of encouraged me to apply. and I was able to get hired. I'm a recent hire. I got hired in March of this year. So, it's been a good 8 months. A lot of learning has happened, but yeah, definitely not the traditional path right out of college, but I'm really glad I made the switch.
That's amazing. Congratulations. That's very exciting. Awesome. Well, I'll keep
Thanks.
moving. I kind of see who's on my screen here. So I think Judy, you're up next again. Same question, a little bit about your career journey and how you got started in tech.
Sure, and I can summarize it pretty good in the interest of time. So I originally started going to school all my life. Thought I wanted to be a doctor, and so I started going to school for actually pre-physician assistant. And partway through it was kind of I was doing fine in all honesty, but I was it's a very competitive field, so I was worried about not making it per se, right? And decided to look into a minor, and I thought, well, I took a web design course back in high school that I enjoyed, and there's a bioinformatics minor here at I went to University of Detroit Mercy at the time, and I'll take a look at that. It was like, I like computers, it's genetics, I can mix the two together and maybe have a little bit of fun with it. Took my first C++ programming class, and immediately it just kind of clicked that I'm like, oh, I see, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So started having conversations with counselors, advisors, things like that, and made the switch into that program. Went to community college for a couple of years just to make sure this is what I wanted to do and save a little money at the same time. Then ended up going to Wayne State University and finishing up my bachelor's there. Right out of college, I had a couple of temporary jobs just while I was looking around for work, and then I got hired in at Nexient, and that is my first and also my current job as a software developer.
Fabulous, Judy. Thank you so much for sharing your background. And is it Daisha? Am I saying your name correctly? Please correct me if I'm wrong.
It's Deshay.
Deshay. Thank you, Deshay. I will turn that over to you as well. So same question.
All right. I went to school, went to Morehouse to study computer science. My goal actually was to be a politician, but my father, who was an engineer, said he's not helping with tuition unless I study something in STEM. Actually, my girlfriend and wife became pregnant our senior year, and so I had to leave college a little early, and I landed my first job. And it was like, hey, we don't care if you finish or not. You know how to do this thing, and like we really want you here. So this was like the year 99, excuse me, 03. It's 2003 for a little company called Earthlink. And so I had an opportunity to work. It was the first time that I felt like my skills were more important than like this degree that they told me I had to go get, which the degree is still great. Again, I was my senior year when I left. And just been running downhill ever since. For me, it's never been about the languages. It's always been about the problems. I enjoy solving problems, not just look at the software or anything else that we use as just a way or a tool to solve the problems. Like I said, I can speed up this entire time, and I'm more than willing to talk to anyone on this call if you want to connect to go into a deeper journey. But I love that work. I transitioned into leadership. It was all about impact. Not that I didn't enjoy writing software, but at a company as large as Home Depot, the impact that I can make on things that actually matter to me, just have a better chance of making an impact once you kind of transition into stronger leadership positions. And yeah, so that's just a quick overview.
Awesome. Thank you, Deshay. Thank you so much for volunteering, yourself to connect with anyone after this call as well. So really appreciate that. And so Andy M, certainly last but certainly, of course, not least, if you wouldn't mind answering that question as well.
Absolutely. So this is my first year working with Pearson, so I'll give a little more background on my college years and kind of how I chose my major, and I actually ended up switching majors throughout. So I started as an electrical and computer engineering student, and looks like there's someone who is not on mute right now. So I started as an electrical and computer engineering student. I felt that those skills didn't really line up with some of my passions as I got further into the coursework. So I probably did about 2 years in that major. During that time, I was also minoring in math, and I really loved and excelled in my math courses. I felt like I wanted to put more of my effort into those rather than my engineering courses. And so I ended up changing my major to math. But while I began that journey, I did miss doing some of the coding work that I had done in my computer engineering courses. So I took up a minor in computer science, where I got to dive a little bit deeper into that. During my junior year to senior year summer, I did an internship with Pearson, where I worked as a business analyst, working with the software ServiceNow. And then from there, I received an offer for a full-time job, and that is where I ended up. So happy to be here and learn and share for all of you.
Thank you so much, Andy. And again, thank you all of you for taking time to tell us a little bit more about you and your background. So we'll jump into the next question that we had submitted here. So what must a non-IT person do or have as skill sets to become successful in an IT career? So Andy E., why don't we start back with you?
It's and somebody else might have a better idea, but it's difficult to say what somebody must do to get into, a IT realm. Definitely study and look at resources and try and find. And there's so many different paths that someone can take. So education, even as a software developer, my best friend is Google. So if I don't know how to do something, I literally Google it. So, definitely take the time to look into avenues and what type of work you may be passionate about, what seems to make sense. So that would be my suggestion there. And as far as skills go, they always say you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I jokingly said my comfort level in coding is a 1, and that wasn't a lie. But I've gotten used to, knowing it is an extremely challenging field to be in. And Google notwithstanding. But you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to, be willing to say, I don't know how to do this, and either ask somebody for help or hit the Google and start the research process there. And so in short, that would be my best advice there.
Thank you, Andy. Kristen, I'll turn it over to you. So again, along the lines of what must a non-IT person do, or some skill sets that they may become successful in IT. And I guess that kind of toes the line. We have another question very similar. Any recommendations maybe you would advise students on who are like trying to transition into tech for maybe the first time? So something along those lines would be great.
Yeah, sure. So I'd probably say, kind of echoing what Andy E had mentioned, kind of just developing or having a willingness to learn. There's so much information out there. There's so many languages, so many different applications and platforms. You're not going to be able to know everything. So you have to be willing to put in the time to do some learning on your own. I'd also say, being willing to ask for help. That was kind of the advice I was given when I started at Vanguard was, don't be afraid to ask questions, reach out to your teammates. Everyone, I mean, luckily for me, everyone on my team that I've, worked with has been super helpful, and other people in this field kind of know how difficult it is, and they're willing to help you out. So yeah, I think that's probably my number one piece of advice. Keep learning, don't be afraid to ask questions and ask for help.
Awesome. Good insight. Thank you, Kirsten. And Judy, I see you next on my screen as well. So again, any recommendations or advice for a non-IT person, potentially even maybe transitioning or breaking into the tech space? Any advice for what they would need to do or skill sets to have to be successful?
Yeah, I know Kirsten mentioned the being able to or be willing to learn, I think is very important. It's one of those things where you're going to be learning at every point in your career, right? No matter how long you work in the field. And then getting started is just, you have to, be able to learn about the technologies you're working with, being able to, be self-driven when it comes to that learning. And then the other thing that I would kind of add on I know what was also mentioned, don't be afraid to ask questions. In addition to that, don't be afraid to share your ideas. It certainly takes some time to get comfortable with doing that, particularly when you're working with clients or with your teammates who have a little bit more experience than you. But you never know when your ideas are going to be beneficial to yourself or your team or your client. And so sharing those ideas and getting comfortable with it is always great. So definitely work on getting more comfortable with sharing those ideas with your peers, and that'll set you up to get better at sharing ideas with clients and your coworkers.
Great. Thank you so much, Judy. And Deshay, same question posed to you. Again, any recommendations for students who are looking maybe to break into the field of tech or coding, or any skill sets or things that they could do proactively, who may not have a traditional non-IT background?
Yeah, so one of the things is I'm looking through the chat. I just want to encourage everyone. I love when we're building teams, people with non-traditional backgrounds. Part of the reason is because it gives you a wealth of experience of how you view a problem that someone who came from a traditional background just won't. We've hired people who have gone to boot camps. One of my favorites who's still here, he was a roadie and he was just building apps to help the bands he was helping go on the dive bars, keep track of their time. And those guys were mostly his buddies, and it was hard to just hold him accountable with words. The app kept track of it. Was the software great that he wrote? No, not at all. It worked though, right? It worked. And we were more encouraged by the fact that he was into solving problems and that he had the curiosity and a passion to solve them with writing code. Um, I think it was Andy who said, hey, Google's your friend. Well, people are your friend. You need to learn how to ask questions, and writing software, regardless of what level, will always be a humbling experience. So you just have to keep that in mind. And so the skill that I think, and it's not a skill, it's just a way of being, I think it's just curious. I love when I talk to someone and they've written something down, or they've written some software for personal use, and they can walk me through like their journey of the features that they've added or why it's important. Um, Again, it doesn't have to be the best software, but it works. But you hear that curiosity and a passion that they're excited about the tool, because again, writing software is humbling. A lot of times it's beating you up more than you're solving a problem. And so I really look for people who have a curious spirit and who love problems more than they enjoy, writing pristine software.
I love that point. I love that you kind of highlighted the fact that there's, everyone maybe oftentimes thinks of computer science coding. You got to have all these hard skills. You got to have all this, coding language knowledge. But there's also those kind of not talked about soft skills, right? Communication, being curious, being collaborative, open-minded. Even those kinds of things are just as crucial into being able to potentially move forward and be successful in your own career path. So I love that you specifically called that out. And Andy, I'll turn it to you as well. So again, any final recommendations for students who, again, looking to make that transition, or they might not have a non-IT background, any skill sets or recommendations you might have for them?
Absolutely. So I just kind of wanted to piggyback off of the last response, and echo the being curious and following your passions. There's lots of different avenues and places you can go into tech with. It doesn't all have to be strictly hard coding. There's lots of other roles that help assist with technology in any department. And so if technology is something that you're interested, there is a route that you can find that. And so just doing some research and finding what kind of scratches that itch that you want filled, and what problems you want to solve, and just follow those passions. And I think that really leads you to success. I also saw in the chat someone mentioned something about networking, and I definitely echo that sentiment. I think that connecting with other people in the technology industry can be really eye-opening, and can help you gain insight into others' ideas, and perhaps like learn from their experiences. And it can help you to solve some of the problems that you're trying to solve by hearing about some of the situations and different projects that they've worked on and encountered, can help you rethink some of the things that you're working on at the moment as well.
Fabulous. Thank you guys all for sharing your insights on that question. Let's move on to the next one. So the next question we have from a student was, what new technologies and or trends do you see becoming a dominant force in the coding and or computer science industry? So Andy E, kicking it back to you to get us started.
Um, the big thing that I work with on my team, and specifically at Asurion, I work on the actual Asurion.com webpage, along with a variety of other sub pages, phoneclaims.com. Have many clients that we work with and handle. I think it's upwards of 12,000 different pages, like specific pages that we work on. But as a part of that, a lot of what we do to save us from having to go into each of those 12,000 pages and make an update on something, automation is really, really important. And so we work with a bunch of platforms that help. Contentful is one of the big ones that we work with. So basically what we do is we write code into it's TypeScript to be specific, but we write TypeScript code into our system, which generates fields in Contentful where non-software developers can actually go in and design web pages for their clients. So automation updates go into a lot of that as well. So yeah, so any time that you can automate a process, or an ability, or break it down to where a non IT person can create content is really important with what I'm doing right now, and that's the future that I foresee.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. Kirsten, I'll kick it over to you. Same question. Any new technologies or trends you see becoming a dominant force in the industry you're in?
Yeah, so I would definitely say probably one of the big focuses that I've seen in my time at Vanguard has been kind of a push for AI ML, so artificial intelligence and machine learning. I also second the automation as well. We're working on modernizing our platforms now, and we have a big push towards automating a lot of these kind of manual processes as well. So, yeah, we're trying to come up with some new ways that we can utilize AI/ML in helping our clients, work. At least my team, we work with our market and trading data. So we create applications for kind of our internal staff, the accountants and traders out there that are using that information. So we're trying to make it as easy for them to interact with that data as well. So I would say AI/ML for Vanguard.
Thanks, Kirsten. Judy, same question over to you.
Yeah, so I don't think that they're necessarily new technologies per se, but at least from what I have seen in the industry thus far, there has been a big push for a lot of our employees to learn some form of cloud computing, whether that's AWS, Azure, something like that. There's been a lot of push for usage of cloud computing with a lot of our clients. And then the other thing, and this is just more of a sort of something I've been hearing through the grapevine, but I have heard of some low code, no code things starting to kind of come into play recently in the industry. I can't unfortunately speak on it per se. I don't have any experience with it, and I haven't had the opportunity to look into it enough. But it might be an interesting subject to just kind of take a look at and see what sort of prospects lie there.
Fabulous. Thanks, Judy. Shay, same question. Kicking it to you.
Um, on the technology and trends, there's so many new like software languages or things that pop up regarding your industry. It's hard to stay on, say, trend per se. I think it's very important, particularly for this audience where there are a ton of students, to have a firm understanding of what happens from request to delivery. You'll often hear a term called like full stack in the industry. A full stack engineer, that's often wishful. Everyone generally has a specialty. But I think there is a trend for wanting software engineers who understand what's happening behind the scenes, even if they aren't necessarily writing the code for every interaction. So from request to persistence, someone mentioned AWS with hosting, someone mentioned, ML and data science. You don't have to be, understand data science or machine learning in their depths, but if you're working on an application or a problem, it may be, okay to have an understanding of how ML is being leveraged in the part of the application that you're writing, right? So I will lean into that. I'd also say um, anything that could be done to help speed up experimentation in the industry is huge. When we think about large companies and where they have the leg up on others, it's often around how often they're able to experiment to learn. And a ton of companies are now catching up to what Amazon has known for a while, or even Google. I think there was a quote years ago when Yahoo was saying, why can't they keep up with Google? And it's because Google had started with experimentation in mind, right? For every interaction, they're running thousands of experiments and collecting the data in order to pivot. So there's a huge shift from a ton of mid company to smaller companies who are really focused on how can we get better at experimenting versus just assuming we have the answer and letting our customers and the data drive us to what we should be building or what we should be pursuing.
Awesome. Love that insight. And Andy, Andy M, same question over to you as well.
So one thing that I've been working on in my particular role as a data analyst is we're doing a lot of automation. So I work in the kind of IT like ticket side industry where ServiceNow, we handle a lot of the different tickets and requests that come in through our employee facing websites. Just to help employees with their day-to-day tasks or getting access to different softwares that they need. And a lot of these processes involve some more complex tasks that take humans a lot of time to do manually. And so we're transitioning those into automated processes so they can give time back to the employees to do things like experiment and solve some other problems in their work. And so automation is a huge thing that we're doing. Another part that I've recently been working on is doing some more low code, no code stuff. So we have a few of those in ServiceNow. One of them is called Flow Designer, where it is actually doing those automated processes through a low code, no code interface. So it's like data pills that you'll drag and drop into place, which is really great for people who are looking to get into the technology industry because you do not have to have this broad knowledge of all of these different coding languages. It's very readable and accessible to those who do not have a technology background. And so we've started incorporating a citizen development program within my team where people who are on different teams that are maybe just using our interface for a way to see their tickets and want to dive more into the technology space, they can work on some flows or different things in this low code, no code environment and kind of experiment with different technology.
Great. Thank you guys all for sharing some of that insight. And we did have a few questions actually come through the chat, and I see you guys have been awesome rock stars at responding to some of these students, but just kind of wanted to highlight them out loud for the group in case there's any other responses out there. So we had one question come in from John, who mentioned that he has some retail management experience, but his question was, how can I present or use my previous experience to prospective employers to help me stand out as a better candidate? And I think probably a lot of students on this call might be thinking along the lines of a very similar question. So I think, Andy, you had kind of responded to John in the chat. So if you want to, kick us off first and kind of elaborate any other additional insight you might have to share on that question.
Yeah, definitely. And my comment was to the effect that highlighting soft skills is really, really important. Really, coding is difficult, but just about anybody can learn it. Some people out in the world, though, just don't work well with others. And so those soft skills, collaboration, cooperation, being open to feedback, being willing to actually voice your opinion. I mean, sometimes you have to stand up for yourself and you got to be courageous enough to speak your mind. but having that ability is really important in an industry that is as highly collaborative as, you know, IT and tech. And so really, some flat out, some people can't learn those soft skills. So if you can show that you already have them, then it helps a lot.
Awesome, Andy. Kirsten, same question. Just any sort of previous experience that you would recommend students highlight on their resume to make them stand out better.
Yeah. So coming, from education, so kind of switching career paths here, I think highlighting the soft skills was definitely something that at least during my interview I tried to highlight. Like we've all kind of mentioned before, it's a very collaborative environment. Teamwork is a main focus. So demonstrating that you can work with other people. I think, in John, for your case, highlighting your managing experience would be helpful as well, showing that you're able to kind of talk with others, provide feedback to them, and kind of work and lift up your colleagues. So I think those kind of things are really beneficial, and I would say soft skills are a lot harder to teach than coding would be. So definitely highlighting those things with your previous experience would be really beneficial in an interview.
Thanks, guys. I'm just keeping actually an eye on the clock here. So we're at 12:40. So I'm just going to have this be more popcorn style. So switching it up a little bit. So if you have, does anyone, Andy or Judy or Deshay, have any final comments on, again, how students can make their resume or application stand out based on their previous experience? Just feel free to unmute yourself, share your insight or your advice.
I think everything was basically covered. The only extra thing I could think of adding would potentially be if you have any outside of school projects that you've worked on, highlighting those to just showcase your skills that you've been working on.
Awesome. And that actually, Judy, ties really well. We did have another student pop into the chat. Similarly, if there's any recommendations on maybe some part-time work or projects, for example, that you would recommend as a coding student participate in that may help them kind of get started in the tech industry. So any other, again, maybe part-time work projects or things that freelance work that you all maybe have done in your past that really helped you, feel free, again, we'll just popcorn style this one. If you have any insights to share, feel free to unmute and answer away.
I'll jump in there really quickly. What matters most when we think about like a portfolio, and a ton of students and a ton of people say, hey, I want to show my portfolio. What matters more than anything, and Judy hit on it because it shows that you're curious and that you're interested, is what you've done outside of school or outside of your boot camp or wherever you are. That automatically gives you the edge, but also because you are going to be able to communicate why you made certain decisions, right or wrong. You're going to be able to walk people through this thing that you cared about and that you are passionate about. And I think that that's hugely important when folks are looking to hire a software engineer. Sure, we care if you can code, but again, just a ton of people can learn how to write software, right? Not everyone is a problem solver. Not everyone is resilient. So if you have a personal project, regardless of what it is, it's great. I also enjoy that because I always say experience is not the time that your butt's in the seat. Experience is the problems that you've seen. So the more projects that you're doing on your own, the more problems that you're seeing, right? The better your reflexes will be when you see something similar. So just build. If we were talking to a classroom of journalists, the first thing we'd say is, what are you writing? And if a journalist was to go, oh, I don't have anything, right? And they're a journalist student, we'd be like, well, you really aren't taking this seriously, are you? Right? You can write about anything, what you watched on TV, something happening in the news. Similar with software students, right? Or computer science students. If you don't have anything and you're blank eyed, they're gonna be like, okay, like I guess, because there's nothing stopping you from doing this anymore. It's not like you need a lab. Everything you need, you can run off your phone or your iPad. So you should be doing as many projects as possible.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing your insights on those. At this point, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague Daisy to wrap up some of the final panel questions that we have kind of lined up for you guys. And I think, Daisy, there was one that did just pop into the chat. So if you want to start with that one, and then I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So we've somewhat covered this question before, but I think this is a really interesting perspective. So, as a career changer, we've got someone in the chat asking what are things that they can highlight on their resume to help with that career change. So, obviously, we talked about projects outside of class. A lot of what we just discussed. Is there anything else that you might advise someone who, again, is career changing to put on their resume? And I will also do this popcorn style, so anyone's welcome to hop in with an answer there.
I'll jump in there. When we're looking for that first role, because I get this question a lot, I'm always real with people, right? When you're changing industry, or you must have experience that's relevant to that industry, right? And it goes outside of what you've done previously. You could have ascended certain heights in a different industry, marketing, advertising, teaching, medicine. But when you're looking for a role in a technology company for a specific role, it could be project management, it could be software engineer, it could be product or UX. You must be able to show relevant experience to that role. And that experience is not always accrued through a job. Again, I go through just your curiosity. When we're talking about that first job or in the door, it's great that you have those soft skills, and you should highlight those. But those will be they would be an appetizer. They aren't the full course. The full meal is going to be your experience based in that role that you're shooting for. So make sure you're spending as much time as possible preparing for that role and not leaning on what you've done in the past.
If I can add a little bit to that real quick, I can understand it's hard to know what to highlight on your resume when you're like, especially when you're if you're trying to get something while you're still in the progress of earning your degree, it's especially hard because you may only have like school projects and things like that. But if you can highlight those school projects that you've done and what technologies you've learned in those, that would be great. Even better if I'm not sure what the curriculum is for SNHU, but at Wayne State University, we had a senior capstone project. And I think that was pivotal for me to highlight on my resume because I hadn't really had much in the way of, I'd had one internship at one point as far as development experience goes. That was only a few months, and that had been like a few years previous, right? But I think that the being able to highlight that senior capstone project and what I did on that project, what I contributed, what technologies I used was very, very pivotal. So definitely any school projects are not to be discounted. I think, it may not seem like it's relevant experience. It's like, well, it's just part of my school, but you can highlight those skills that you have used and that you have learned for sure.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you
kind of to
both.
jump on that real fast. As a current student in the program, I will say there's a wide variety of courses that you have to take as a computer science major here at Southern New Hampshire. And many of these courses have a kind of all-encompassing project at the end of them that you do put into a GitHub repository to hold it as like your portfolio. So if you are going to take a couple computer science courses, those projects are kind of incorporated into the curriculum as well. So, it's definitely something that you can highlight. And for people like me who have a job and I'm kind of going to school part-time, you might not have as much time as you'd like to go and kind of do your own projects. So I think, getting it done within these courses is really helpful as well.
Thanks to all of you. Those are fantastic answers. And I would be remiss if I didn't also use this as a chance to plug SNHU Career Services. You can always make an appointment with your career advisor and have a conversation as well about your resume, career changing, your experiences. I absolutely encourage you to do that. So I'm actually going to go slightly off script. And Kirsten, if I could ask you, please, there was a question earlier in the chat that really stood out to me, and it was about imposter syndrome. And specifically, this person was saying that they suffer from imposter syndrome. They feel that if they don't have tangible credentials, they won't have any value to a company. Imposter syndrome, something that I've always grappled with myself. And as a current SNHU student, if you wouldn't mind speaking to that, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. I feel like at least at some point in time, all of us suffer from imposter syndrome in this industry. There's just so much to learn, and I'm like a perfectionist, so it bothers me sometimes that I might not know everything that I need to know. But I think what helped me to kind of break out and reach out and get this other job was talking to people who have worked at that company, reach out to someone there, maybe talk to the HR people. I think that you have a lot of skills and other people will kind of pull that out of you. So I think that that's probably my best advice would be try to reach out to someone in the field, maybe at the company that you're looking at or interested in, and just kind of see what a day in the life is like. Ask them for thoughts and suggestions. I thought I wasn't, going to be hired because I'm still a student. I've just kind of recently picked up coding, but it worked out for me. So I think, just kind of reaching out to your family, friends, and other people to kind of, build you up, and a lot more than you think you do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's fantastic suggestions. Let's see. So going back to the script that I was asked to stick to. So Judy, could you please speak to, especially you as returning panelists, what advice you would offer to students who are maybe don't have a coding background, they're new to coding, and this week is their first brush with coding? What would be your best advice as they go into this week?
Okay, so this is your first brush with coding. My goodness. Well, it's certainly there's a lot of information. I would say take it slow. Um, there's going to be a lot of information that's thrown at you over the course of your career, right? You're always going to be learning. Kind of touching back to the previous question a little bit, it's kind of unfair to say like you have to know everything as far as the imposter syndrome goes, because there's always something new. There's always something to learn. So keep that in mind and go at your own pace. Watch videos, follow coding exercises, get your hands dirty. That's the other big thing, is like get your hands dirty with writing out code. Do some coding exercises to be able to fully understand the fundamentals and get those down. Get the fundamentals down first before you start going on to. Now, of course, you can move on to other more complex things and just kind of learn how things work through that. But definitely focus on the fundamentals at the beginning. Don't worry about which coding language you need to learn to, have the leg up on the competition, quote unquote, if you will, in the job market. Pick one that interests you, learn it, and just keep working through it. I think that's going to be a good start for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have to recommend, I don't remember what it's called, but one of the Hour of Code sessions is Dancing Creatures. Easily my favorite, so I definitely recommend that to any students as well. And so moving on to the next question, Andy M. Right now in the chat as well, networking has really emerged as a prevalent thought, even when it comes to a technical field. What would you recommend for a student who maybe is new to networking or is trying to break into what networking looks like in the coding field? Do you have any suggestions for that?
So to start off with, I think that everyone's already doing a great job with that by just attending this week of coding events and getting the chance to learn from people who have experience in the field. I would say that also at this age that join different technology-related clubs at your university, or ask your professors about some of the stuff that they've worked on. Networking can really be found anywhere. The peers that you're with now, while they may not be in tech-related roles at the moment, that's where they're headed. And so once you enter the field, they're going to be there as well, and that's great people to rely on. As well as someone in the chat mentioned to find a mentor and pick their brain out. I would absolutely echo this. When I began my internship, Pearson gave us some mentors to work with. And since then, we have like weekly or biweekly meetings where we just chat, whether that be tech related or not. And also, not all networking needs to be about showcasing your technical skills. It can also just be about making friends and just meeting other people in the industry and seeing others who have similar passions as you, which can be really exciting. And it doesn't have to be this nerve-wracking, oh, I really need to network and get my name out there event. It's just about showing who you are and what your passions are, and finding other people who have similar passions and interests.
Yeah, I love that. So networking can be a conversation as much as it can be a formal practice. So that's fantastic. Thank you. So Alyssa, I'm looking at the time. Do I have time for one more question, or should I go ahead and we should wrap it up?
Let's go ahead and shoot for one more.
Okay. Andy E., last question, no pressure. What are the best resources in your mind to practice or learn a new programming language?
No pressure means instantly just massive anxiety. No,
Mhm.
I put it in the chat earlier. Code Academy. It's not Code Academy. It's Code Academy. Is one of my personal favorites. Free Code Camp also has some really good resources. There is a website, W3 Schools, is amazing for just getting in there, and it's not really it's slightly interactive, but it doesn't it's not structured like Code Academy or Free Code Camp. It's just kind of you go in there, pick a language, and then just start using going through the chapters and seeing what's out there. So those are really good. If I haven't mentioned Scrimba's out there. Um, and then YouTube. I go on YouTube all the time. Um, Content wise, there's a channel called Socratica, uh, like Socrates, but Socratica. And I really like their videos. They're kind of amusing. And the way they've got them laid out, you can learn SQL's really good. Python, they have a really good series on Python. But really, there are tons and tons of people on YouTube just doing videos, and you can basically code right alongside of them, and they'll start from the beginning, show you how to spin up an environment, and you can code right alongside with them, and if you fall a little behind, hit the pause button, catch up, and then keep going. So those are really have what gotten me to this point. So that's what I really get into.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I really appreciate YouTube is too. It's just such a data bank of information these days. Although I will tell you, my sister has tried to learn how to yodel off of YouTube, so your mileage may vary, but I think for coding it should be fantastic. So Alyssa, that's all the questions that I have. If you want to go ahead and wrap us up.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. And for the panelists, if you, to answer kind of that last question, if you have any resources that have helped you as you've kind of learned and explored new program language, feel free just to kind of add those into the chat as links for the students to take a look at. But first and foremost, thank you guys so much. I'm going to highlight really quickly here before we conclude. Just want to take a moment. Again, of course, thank you all so much for your fabulous insight and your advice. Did want to highlight kind of for the students in the audience today, the rest of the Hour of Code week-long schedule. So again, here's just to kind of highlight the sessions are happening throughout the rest of this week. So as you can see, we actually even have one happening from 3 to 4 today. And as you see on the schedule, they'll be happening. We usually schedule about 2 each day. And then our last one will be Friday from 12 to 1. So students are encouraged to attend as many daily gaming coding sessions as you'd like. I'm not sure which one the dancing creatures is that Daisy mentioned, but it's got to be one of these. So definitely encouraging you to take a look at that. And any students can join these scheduled sessions. They're all happening virtually through Microsoft Teams. And I'll be adding shortly here a link in the chat box to Handshake, where you can actually just see that schedule flushed out a little bit more and the links to join as well. So feel free to take a look at that. And then we'll just go ahead and pop to our final page here. So again, thank you everyone. Thank you so much, of course, for our wonderful panelists, and everything you have shared today with all of our attendees has been absolutely wonderful. I really, really appreciate your time. And again, for all the students, staff, and faculty here in the audience, thank you so much for joining us today, and all the activity that has been going through the chat box is awesome to see. And some of the students here as well. So you'll see right here on the screen a survey QR code. So if you please wouldn't mind taking a few moments to scan it and fill it out, that's very, very helpful for us. And of course, if students have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to our SNHU career team. We do highly encourage that you stay in touch with all of our panelists who have been here in attendance today. And panelists, if you'd like to add your LinkedIn profile URL to the chat box, that would be fabulous. And of course, students, we definitely encourage you to come to all the coding games and activities happening the rest of this week. And so with that, with a minute to spare, our presentation is now over. So again, all guests and attendees, you're simply welcome to log off. But again, so much, really, really appreciate everyone's time here. And again, panelists, you were all wonderful. So appreciative of your time, your insight, your advice you had to share with all of our students. Hopefully it was informational, impactful for all of you as well. But again, thank you so much for everyone for being here this afternoon. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Take care, everybody.